Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new real-life car review. In this episode I'm driving the new Kia Stonic, which in fact isn't a new car at all, but Kia gave the existing Stonic such a thorough overhaul that they themselves speak of a new generation of the Stonic. And to be honest, they are not wrong. So in this episode I want to discuss the new exterior design, the new interior and the updated technology. As per usual, I want to start off by having a peek under the hood. In most countries, the new Kia Stonic is available with two engine options, a 1-liter non-hybrid version and this 1-liter hybrid version, which is a mild hybrid version. It's a 48-volt system that utilizes the starter generator, which lives on here. It adds a little bit of extra horsepower. The non-hybrid version makes 100 horsepower and this mild hybrid version 115 horsepower at 6000 rpm, and the maximum torque, and I have to look this up, is 170 newton meters between 1500 and 3500 rpm. It's an interesting powertrain. It's been along for quite some time now and Kia have reworked this engine. I noticed something interesting. I thought this was the intake, the air intake to the airbox and the air filter, but the air filter lives over here and this is the intake. So what is this little section over here? Well, let me pull up this cover that sits over the engine, which looks like an air filter unit, but actually it's there is some isolation material in here and some air duct that lead cool air towards the turbo. And while we have it up, we see a couple of interesting things. First, there is the high pressure fuel pump. This engine is direct injection only, so it does not have an added port injection. I also see an air to water heat exchanger over here with a secondary expansion thing. Very interesting construction. A lot of isolation on the cables over here, so that also tells it can get quite warm over here. That's why the air ducting is in here. It's a very reliable engine, and the most significant part about this engine is that it uses Hyundai and Kia SmartStream technology. And what it does, it can continuously vary the valve duration, or it's otherwise called CVVD. In a nutshell, it's a very interesting system because it can vary the speed of the cams in relation to the camshaft. Normally a cam is directly attached to the camshaft and when it goes around, the cams go around. But in this case there is an intermediate link. It's between the cams and the camshaft. In its neutral position the cams just rotate along with the camshaft at the exact same speed. But if you move this system, this linkage in one direction, the cam can slow down one half of the rotation and then accelerate the second half of the rotation, but it always meets up with the camshaft itself at the same point. Now when you have the cam accelerate while it opens the valve stays open for a shorter period of time. When you move that linkage in the opposite direction, you can slow down the cam when it passes over the valve lifter, meaning that the valve stays open longer. And this is used for engine efficiency. When you need to get more air and fuel in, you open the valves longer, but when you are idling or coasting, then it has the valves open for a shorter period of time. It sounds complicated, it adds some mechanical and electronic complexity to the engine, but it's not prone to mechanical failure. This system really works well. It's very well thought out, and in reality it's very well tested, tried and true. Oh yeah, and the hybrid battery lives in the trunk. Let's have a peek in the cargo area. The tail end design, just like the front end design, differs per trim level. This GT Plus line gets a lower rear bumper design. This lower section is different with these colored panels in here. And from the mid to the upper trim levels, the taillights are full LED taillights, whereas the lower trim grades get incandescent taillights. Let's open it up. There is no electric trunk opener, and why would Kia incorporate that? Because this is much faster, much simpler. Cargo space, 352 liters as standard, and when we fold the rear seats down it's 1155 liters. Hyundai and Kia have in some of the models a very nifty feature where you can slide the parcel shelf down and you can transport taller goods, so this doesn't flop around anywhere in the car, it's neatly stored. And when we have a look under the cargo floor, which doesn't have a double layer, it's a one layer, one level cargo floor. Underneath here lives the battery for the hybrid system, and there is also a tire mobility kit, a fix a flat kit to repair small tire leaks. It's nicely finished and it's a real practical cargo space. So let's now have a look at the new interior of the Kia Stonic. So welcome aboard the new Kia Stonic, where we have a brand new dashboard layout. As you can see, they kept part of the structure of the old dashboard. It's quite deep, it's not as short as we saw in the Kia EV4 for instance. The reason for that is they didn't change the structure in the dashboard itself. But looking at this, it's a convincing redesign and it's completely in line with new Kia models. But if you look up close, you see some small differences. For instance, this gauge cluster, this instrument cluster, is something that we saw in older generations of Kias. Doesn't matter to me, it works well. And also the infotainment system is obviously the older generation infotainment system that Kia used. And I think the reason for that is more hardware. It's not cost saving or something that they couldn't incorporate it with the technical infrastructure of the Kia Stonic. Doesn't matter, it works really well, and I think if it's possible they will change it via an over-the-air update. Anyway, this section over here also looks familiar. That's something that we saw for instance in the Kia EV6 for the first time. It's a combined cluster of buttons for both the infotainment and the HVAC controls. So you can select between the infotainment system, and when I push this button it changes over to the climate control. And the volume button all of a sudden becomes the temperature control button. And you can set the preferred setting. I have it set to infotainment, but if I hold down one of these little buttons over here, this screen pops up and you can say, well, what you want, if you prefer the infotainment, the HVAC control, or the last one that you selected. But I think it's good that you select one of those. If you change the volume a lot and it changes back to the temperature control instead of cranking up the volume or cranking up the temperature. So you have to learn to live with that, but it is very easy. Below here is the new center console. It's also completely redesigned. The upper trim grade, the GT Plus line, gets a wireless charger for your smartphone. Also this car gets heated front seat, a heated steering wheel, and there is this little section behind here for USB connectivity and USB charging, and also there is a 12-volt outlet, and of course the gear selector lever. And this version gets an electric parking brake / e-brake with an auto hold function that automatically engages. What is coming from the newer generation of Kia is the steering wheel. This is the exact same steering wheel that I saw in the EV4. It's nice with the drive mode button in the center. Yeah, it works really well, and there are no flappy pedals behind the steering wheel for manual shifting. You can manual shift by flicking the gear selector lever to the left and then use the plus and minus function. Looking at the dashboard design, it's a lot of harder plastics. It doesn't matter, it's cost effective, it looks well. Oh yeah, and also that's hard to see right now because it's bright as day. There is an illuminated line over here for the mood light, but it's only available on the top trim level, which also gets a sliding and tilting sunroof, but I'll close it for now because of the glare. And also the seats in this top trim level get synthetic leather for the headrest and the side bolstering, and a specific design with a GT line marking in there in the center section of the seat back and the seat itself. And talking about the seats, they are large enough for my body size. I'm 1 meter 75 centimeters. Only thing I wish that the seats were tilted up a little bit more in the front so I have more support in my upper legs. But the adjustability, the depth and the rake of the steering wheel is good. There is plenty of adjustability in the seats themselves, so very short person and very tall person will find a good seating position in the new Kia Stonic. And yeah, as I mentioned in the last review of the Kia EV4, if you opt for a model with a sunroof, you get a little bit less headroom. So yeah, all in all, very nice, very well redesigned interior. Now let's quickly have a look at the rear passenger space. As you can see, ingress and egress is super easy for adults, but the fact that this is a large door opening and the door swings open to an almost 90-degree angle make this car ideal for parents that have smaller children that need to be put in child seats. Looking in the rear, you can see this hump over here where the drive and the storage space of the sunroof lives. They made a little bump, so I have a little bit of headroom. As said, I'm 1.75 meters. I don't have the most headroom in this car. For larger adults, the rear passenger space of the Stonic isn't ideal, but for smaller children it's big enough. So let's do the window test first. And the windows sink entirely in. And as you can see, view towards the outside for smaller children is ideal. The belt line or shoulder line isn't too low in this car. There aren't many creature comforts. There only are 2 USB-C outlets. There is no center armrest and there are no cup holders. Only a small pocket for a small bottle in the door cards themselves. What I do like is that the upholstery is light from the belt line up, so the headliner and the pillows are light, so it doesn't have as dark as an interior as the Kia EV4 had. There's plenty of light in here. Yeah, it's ideal for families with smaller children. Anyway, it's about time we hit the road for a drive. And we're on our way again. This is actually take 2. I had a little accident with my camera and it appears to be working now. So, what's there to tell about the ride and handling of the new Kia Stonic? Well, a couple of things, actually a lot. Let me start off by the steering. When I picked up the car, I noticed that the steering is quite light. There's a lot of power assist and it's really set up for a city car, city driving. So quick maneuvering into tight parking spots, a lot of curves, a lot of roundabouts. But on highway driving, it isn't nervous at all. The steering ratio is calibrated, set up in such a manner that the car doesn't become nervous on highway driving. So the steering is actually really nice, but noticeably set up for city driving. Another thing that I noticed in the steering is the sensitivity of the torque sensors in the steering column, and those torque sensors are used to monitor hands-on driving when you're using the lane assist and the steer assist. And it has always been a little problem with the older Hyundais and Kias where those sensors aren't sensitive enough. So when you're driving using the steer assist, the car oftentimes, too many times, warns you to keep your hands on the steering wheel while you have your hands on the steering wheel. Newer Kias, newer Hyundais don't have that problem, so this tells me that it's really a carryover from the older generations, as is the infotainment system. That's something that really needs improvement, because you're actually driving with your hands on the steering wheel and you get literally a ton of unnecessary warnings. So there's that. Now, the most important thing to note about the Kia Stonic is the effect of the drive mode selector. Usually this really is a gimmick in cars and it mostly changes the throttle response, but there are 3 drive modes in the Kia Stonic and all 3 have a very different character. The car really has 3 very different personalities. So let me start off by Eco. That's the mode the car starts in because of homologation regulations. It's the most efficient, less polluting drive mode. And in Eco mode, what the car does, and does a lot, is using the sail mode. And sail mode is both used on the manual transmission car and in this automatic transmission car. When you lift off the accelerator, the clutch, or clutches in this case because it's a double clutch transmission, the clutch is disengaged, the car stays in gear, engine shuts off, and you make the most of the kinetic energy that's in the car to roll as far as you can. Yeah, and that really has a profound effect on the fuel efficiency, because when I picked up the car, I drove it in eco mode, and on highway driving, I got the exact same fuel consumption as I got in the Kia Picanto, around 19 to 20 kilometers per liter, and that's on highway driving. But it isn't ideal because the engine shuts off a lot, and I'm the kind of person that always shuts off the auto start stop function, because I'd much rather have the engine running and idle it a little bit, so you at least have lubrication and cooling operational. Especially after a long highway drive when everything is hot, I like to maintain a running engine, mostly for the lubrication reasons and seizing of piston rings. But yeah, in this sailing function that this car does a lot, it often shuts off the engine. And what happens a lot is when you approach an intersection or a roundabout, or as in this case a curve, you get your foot off the accelerator, the engine shuts off, and then you touch the brake, and then the engine re-engages again to do some engine braking and some regen braking. And that's not something that you can switch off in eco mode. So you get two things: a lot of sailing / coasting, and a very modest throttle response. When you switch the car into normal, which I do now, you get a different throttle response, but it doesn't coast / sail as much as it did. You lift the accelerator and you have the normal engine / regen braking. But I also have a remark on the regen braking, namely when the battery is fully charged, so at around 100% state of charge, you get less regen braking because the electricity has nowhere to go, and you get the normal compression brake aided by the CVVD system that's in this Smart Stream engine. But you get a different deceleration every time you lift the accelerator, depending on the state of charge of the battery. And in this car there is no indication for the state of charge of the battery, so you never know how much deceleration you get on throttle lift-off in normal mode. And it is something that you can get used to, that you can adjust to. But for other people that do a lot of city driving and try to coast a lot, yeah, it can be a little bit of an annoyance, but it's something that you can go test during a test drive if it actually bothers you. But if there's one thing that I really would like to see in this car, is a state of charge indicator for the hybrid battery. Then there's also the sport mode, and then it becomes an entirely different car. Oh, I have to slow down. Agricultural traffic. Now in sport mode, and let me put it in sport mode, you can see you immediately tipped over, and that's the immediate response that the throttle has. What happens in sport mode is you get a real fierce throttle response, as far as fierce can go with 150 horsepower, but the car and its shifting pattern completely changes. It really becomes a sporty car, a lot of driving dynamics, and it's actually fun to drive. I didn't expect that from a 115 horsepower car. I mean, it's not the heaviest car, it's not the lightest car either, but the throttle response, now I have to hold the camera, but when I floor it, it downshifts and it winds out to the red line, and the car is actually pretty fast. So these drive modes in the Kia Stonic give you three very different characteristics of a car, and I've never seen this large differences in the several drive modes. But all in all, I'm pleasantly surprised by how well this car drives, especially when you take the entry-level price in account. It's mainly intended as a city car, and you get the same fuel economy as a Kia Picanto, but the performance is much better. You get much more interior space, much more cargo space. So it's pretty impressive what Kia has achieved with this redesign. It may not be an entirely new car, but it sure feels as a complete new generation Kia, apart from some minor technical details. Anyway, let's head over to the middle of nowhere for my final thoughts. Again, see you in a second. The Kia Stonic has been on sale for 9 years now, and it's always been a sales success in this neck of the woods, and it's not hard to see why. It's an ideal grocery getter, city car, kids hauler, long distance car, road trip car. It can handle everything you throw at it, and it's practical enough for the majority of people, especially families with small children. I've told you what you need to know about this car, how it rides and handles. The question is, which version should you get? Well, in my opinion, one of the mid-range trim levels with LED headlights is the best value for money. But trim levels vary per country, the content of trim levels vary per country. But so one of the mid-range trim levels would be my advice. Should you get the non-hybrid or the hybrid version? Well, given the fact that this mild hybrid version provides so much driving pleasure and gives great fuel economy, I think I personally would go for a mild hybrid version. But hey, it's your money, it's your decision. And that's all I have to say about this car actually. Anyway, thanks so much for following me along. If you like this real-life car review, let me know by giving this video a like, leave a comment if you have any questions or constructive feedback, and maybe subscribe to my channel. And if you want to help support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee. I'll leave the link for that down below in the description box. That's it for now. Hope to see you soon in a new real-life car review. Bye!